Some of you are sad, and it's probably at least partially my responsibility to help make you happy. That is to see the things worth smiling about. Welcome to Doug in Exile. If you're not having a good day, well, you're going to now. You'll be so glad you tuned in that you might actually accidentally click that subscribe button. Whoops. Oh no. Cheers, Chris Cillizza, lefty. Look at that powder blue. It looks, I feel like it's 1979. Only good news for us from this Democrat.
The Democratic Party is in worse shape today, both in terms of how it's viewed by the general electorate, but also how Democrats feel about it, than at any time that I can remember in my covering of politics, which is now, because I'm old, almost 3 decades. All right.
Yes, hold on, guys. Stop. We must set up an altar and thank the Lord here before we move on in our journey. 3 decades of Chris Saliza covering the pagan, satanic Democrat Party. If you're not happy now, man, I got nothing for you. Let me get that light back on. Ooh, skin cancer healing, guys. Thank you for the prayers. Thank you all to my people. You sustain me in your prayers. This isn't just Republican stuff. This guy's a Democrat. This guy, lifelong hater of all things right, conservatives, family values. They call, any patriotism like jingoism. Chris Saliza despises your values. And he goes, this isn't just the Republicans saying the Democrats have never had it worse off. He goes, this is from Democrats. They've never been in a worse place. These are the good times. Of course, we will not let up. Keep their face down in the poo-poo. Do not let them up. If you let them back up, like the villain, that comes back at the end, you thought he was dead, and he comes up and ends up, following the hero back home to his family and just starts grabbing his wife and children. You have to make sure the Democrat Party face in the poo-poo stays down, even though they're not moving. They're just faking. They're play dead. They're play acting.
Associated Press poll, national poll out on Thursday morning. Some of these numbers are stunning. They asked Democrats how optimistic or pessimistic they feel about their party's future. 1 in 3 Democrats, 33% of Democrats, said they are either very optimistic or even somewhat optimistic about their party's future. 33%, 1 in 3. Compare that to July 2024, when 6 in 10 Democrats said they felt either very or somewhat optimistic about their party's future.
So that's been cut in half. Only half of them are confident. I still think it's too many. I won't be happy until all of them are in doubt about their party's future. When 100% of them go, this is a giant pagan lie. Because remember, if they roll out their same Democrat talking points of we love illegal aliens, we love lawlessness, we love mutilating your kids, all the things that they love, they're going to try to create a mass media push towards popularizing those things again and demonizing you for being against, say, racial preferences in hiring. They're going to demonize you. That's the only way they can win, is by normalizing and mainstreaming those major tenets of their party. Or they can abandon those values and say, we're going to take on other values. But they're not going to abandon those values because it is a pagan religion. They've bet their life on it. They believe they're doing right. They would rather be martyred and die than give it up.
July 2024 was when Democrats were in the midst of changing their nominee, right? Joe Biden had the debate. Kamala Harris was becoming we were debating what was going to happen. Biden gets out of the race July 21st. Kamala Harris gets into the race. Maybe you get a little of the excitement of switching from Biden to Harris in those numbers, but 6 in 10 Democrats, even in that moment, which was chaotic at a minimum, even in that moment, said they were somewhat or very optimistic about the future of the party.
And Chris, part of that is because they were deceived, both under Biden and when they swapped him out for Kamala Harris. They were deceived by people like you saying that they still haven't had a shot. The polls were close. Trump was worried. Take some responsibility for the dishonesty, the lies that you told your party. I didn't tell them. I'm not even a journalist. I'm a comic book artist. You're a journalist. You're part of what pumped them up with a false belief right up to the end when Iowa was saying, Kamala has a chance. That you people, you journalists, you did not sound the alarm to your own party and say, guys, Kamala's behind. You were like, she could do it. They're close. It could happen.
Today, it is 1 in 3. What percentage of Republicans feel very or somewhat optimistic about their party's future right now? A majority, 55%. A huge delta there, both between where Democrats were.
It shows how humble we are and how we're not into wishful thinking. We only have 55% confidence in our own party. A whole lot of our criticism is for the corruption in our own party. And that's when we have the presidency, the Senate, House of Reps, the Supreme Court. We've got it all. And we're not sitting there going, we got the power. We're like, be cautious, guys. You know what man's nature is made of. And you know how our own party, we have to be very careful and cautious, especially when we're in power. That's what someone who you can trust in power does. They remain humble, terrified, and introspective that they're going to go wrong. They don't trust themselves with the one ring just because you're given the power.
In July of 2024 and where Republicans are today. They got together and Puck asked them to ask people, what one word comes to mind when you say the Democratic Party? And
a Marxist, the devil. I'll let you guys contribute down in the chat below. What's the one word that comes to your mind when you hear the Democrat Party? How about pragmatism? Ends justify the means. How about lawlessness? How about lying? How about suckers? How about naive, fake, posturing, self-aggrandizement, drama queen? You guys help me out with some of the vocabulary when the word Democrat Party. What do you say in the chat below?
I always think these word association things are actually very useful. I think they're an interesting guide into sort of the brand of the two parties. Like what's your brand association with Chick-fil-A or Coca-Cola or McDonald's, right? And I think those things are useful in the commercial world, but also in the political world.
Kind of like if you wear a powder blue coat, your brand is televangelist.
Here are the 3 words that were most mentioned when the pollster said, name one word that comes to mind when I say the Democratic Party. Liberal, weak, corrupt. Liberal, weak, corrupt. Yeah. Obviously, that's not where you want to be as a party. But this
so you can change. How about here's how you can stop doing that. You can stop being liberal, weak, and corrupt, for starters. That never occurs to Chris Cillizza. By the way, this is his party. This is who he would vote for, is the ones that everyone thinks are liberal, weak, and corrupt. Yeah, you can go for something else. You could just be something else and you'll stop being a Democrat.
This is actually even more interesting because remember I said even Democrats are not optimistic about their party and are down on their party, right? They then said, all right, let's ask the same question, but we'll just ask Democrats what one word comes to mind. And you would think it would be like fair or equal.
Why would you ever think that fair and equal would be the Democrat Party? Well, they're delusional. So maybe they think that. No one would, even if Democrat doesn't think a Democrat is into equality, they're into inequality.
Something. Here was the number one word.
How about racist?
Weak.
That just means they want them to fight more. When they say, because I would say that about Republicans too. Hey, a lot of times we're weak. We don't fight enough. Or in the church on the right, we're talking about conservatives. We're weak. They don't mean it in the best sense of the term. They just mean like, we don't fight for our correct principles enough. We're weak, even though we have the right thinking. So that's not the Democrat Party calling for them to change their values. They just want them to fight for their corrupt, satanic values more.
Weak was the number one word that Democrats associated with their party, and ineffective was right there as well.
Same thing with ineffective. They want them to be effective with their wrong values. That is, they don't believe that it's weak to believe that you should trans a kid. They don't believe that it's weak to believe in open borders. They think that what's weak is that that you're not fighting enough. You're not doing enough. You're ineffective in opening up the borders. You're ineffective in transing the kids. You're ineffective in assassinating Donald Trump. See, they don't believe in the different values. They just think that the fight should be harder. They should be more radical, which Democrats have always been more violent and emotional.
So liberal, weak, corrupt for the general electorate, and weak and ineffective for the Democratic sample. I find that, I guess, not surprising because we've had the Democratic brand in a place since Donald Trump won in 2024.
It's not surprising because Chris Cillizza probably knows more Democrats than the rest of us. The weak and effective. It should be dishonest, racist, pagan, atheistic, socialist, totalitarian, bully.
I've not seen before. We're in worse shape in terms of how people view it than I've ever seen before. I've talked to pollsters who've said they've sat in focus groups, and the words that keep coming up are weak and woke. So that weak word,
weak, woke, they both start with a W. I love it. At least woke is an indictment of what they believe, and it's a negative, it's a pejorative term. Yes, they're woke. So the people are waking up, their eyes are opening, that they're weak and woke.
keeps coming up.
Good.
And I think that is sort of a big problem for the Democratic Party. You can't be viewed as weak. Donald Trump's great strength, even for people who don't agree with him, is he's viewed as a fighter and tough. Now, we can debate whether he is a fighter and tough, but
Oh, no, you can't. He is a fighter and he's tough. Just a quick check-in, guys. Democrats in trouble, have no idea what to do. Wrong answers only. Chris Cillizza is one of the guys coming up with the wrong answer, wrong take home. He just believes that they're weak. They should be fighting more, not like a complete change of mind, or probably even better if they repented would be a complete change of heart. I'm Doug in Exile. Give me your one-word description of the Democrat Party.